Shout outs to Cresselia. I think Cresselia really one of the MVPs for him this weekend. He was the 2020 Dallas Regional Champion. So that is his past regional championship right there. Getting second place in Utah back in 2022. Made a top cut at Worlds a couple of times. Top 8 in 16, top 16 and 19, there we go. And he's running a team of the Heatran Cresselia, Rapid Striker Shifu, Iron Hands, Rillaboom, and Landorus, which is the sort of slower version of this Urshifu core that we've been seeing play out.
And now with Riley Factura on the other end, you see those 4 regional championships. If Riley walks away with a Pittsburgh regional title, he will break his tie with Aaron Zhang in 4 Masters Division regional championships. So this is definitely something really exciting to look forward to as top 4 and potentially the finals develop. And you see on his end, a lot of Pokemon you can be very familiar with, some I should say, in the Amoonguss and Heatran and Cresselia in that 2015 year. I believe there was an acronym revolving around a couple of them and some other friends.
I think you're absolutely right. But what strikes me as interesting here is that this might be the first Cresselia Heatran mirror that we've seen play out on stream this weekend. Certainly not the first time it's happened in this tournament. So that makes me wonder, well, what are the differences between these two teams? We know that Aaron has opted to drop Fake Out on his Iron Hands. He does not have it holding the Assault Vest. That's Heatran's held item. And instead he has Swords Dance on that Pokemon, which we know Wolf has used to great success in past formats. Looking at Riley's Iron Hands, that is the Assault Vest Pokemon, and as a result, it does no Fake Out. So there's an interesting interaction there that could play out if we do see those two Pokemon lead out in the field against each other.
And the difference in the Heatrans there, as you mentioned, Aaron's has Assault Vest. Riley's is holding Life Orb. So Riley's looking to take names with this Heatran. It's going to have more offensive pressure thanks to that Life Orb taking 10% of your HP away to deal 30% extra damage. And you know, one of the scariest things is if you run into 2 Terragrass Heatran mirrors, because it's really hard for them to do damage to each other, but that little bit of Life Orb damage might actually help out.
We will cross that bridge if it's one of the 400 odd bridges.
Hopefully we don't
in
get there, but if we do.
When we get there.
447th bridge.
Oh yeah, thank you. I needed the exact count on that once again. No, it's interesting to sort of look at how many possible opportunities there are here for these mirror matchups. And I think the Heatran versus Heatran one is definitely we should keep an eye out for. But as we go into game number 1, interestingly enough, there is no similar Pokemon on either side of the field. Aaron's starting off very passively, whereas Riley has come out with his Urshifu's guns blazing.
So your Aaron has his Iron Hands and Cresselia versus the Urshifu and Qianpao on Riley's end. Gabby, this Iron Hands, you said, does not have Fake Out, so you know the opposing Pokemon on Riley's side are faster.
You do, and you also know that the Urshifu is going to be hitting for very big damage, a very quick damage even with a Choice Scarf, and the Qianpao is there to just lower the defenses of everything. That all being said, I don't think that Riley has the opportunity to knock out this Cresselia, even if he doubles into it, as Qianpao's only Dark-type attack is going to be Sucker Punch. So if Aaron wants to, he may be able to set up Trick Room here, at which point that speed isn't necessarily as big of a factor in this lead matchup.
Yeah, at that point, the slower Pokemon would be moving faster, which could be to Aaron's advantage. But for now, Riley is going to terastallize the Urshifu with its water typing, gaining that additional same type attack bonus as a water type, making those Surging Strikes last or hit even harder. However, Cresselia is going to say, all right, I like being a water type too, and resist those Surging Strikes.
This Cresselia now, and even pairing it with the Detect on the Iron Hands, Aaron is going all in on this turn 1 Trick Room play, and you can see...
No, you can't protect it, or you can't protect or detect in front of Iron Hands. This critical hit will go through. Aaron was just trying to play it safe in case the Urshifu targeted down Cresselia. I respect the play. You got to have the Ice Spinner, and that time, unfortunately, Chien-Pao also doesn't break through Protect, so Iron Hands gets to stick around, and Trick Room is set up.
You can see how much of a difference, though, that terrestrialization on the Urshifu did in terms of damage to the Iron Hands. I mean, that it's down in the red. Iron Hands is holding leftovers, so eventually it could get some of its health back. But now I think it's going to struggle overall in order to deal, or in order to stick around for much longer. It could go for a Drain Punch into the Chien-Pao and bring it down to its Focus Sash, but I don't think that'll heal up enough health to stop that Urshifu from picking up the KO this turn. Aaron could try and utilize his Cresselia to heal up that Iron Hands as well with a Lunar Blessing, but again, I feel like at that point in time, you're just taking a huge risk on trying to save this Pokemon, when the better play might be to just let it get KO'd, get some, break the Focus Sash on the Chien-Pao this turn, and then send in a Pokemon that's in a bit better position following up.
So Iron Hands will switch out at this point. We have to remember Aaron's Pokemon is very low health on the Iron Hands in the back. It will be the Landorus switching into that spot and intimidating both of Riley's Pokemon. Not really mattering on Urshifu, plus it switches out anyway. So Riley's gonna get a little bit of pivoting, in his way with Amoonguss switching into that Urshifu slot. But they're both weak to Psychic, well, when he was a fighting type. So this was a safe Psychic regardless from the Cresselia. And there's the Landorus eating an Ice attack on the switch-in.
That was such a great call there from Riley. I think if you had doubled into that Iron Hands, the Ice Spinner would have picked up the knockout at that point in time, and then the Urshifu's attack would have been auto-retargeted into the Cresselia. If the Urshifu were to swap out and then you were able to land the Ice Spinner against the Iron Hands, again, that's still good damage, probably would have been enough for a KO there. So Riley just playing it very safe that turn, getting the Amoonguss out on the field, and now this Amoonguss is in a fantastic opportunity to capitalize on the Trick Room and threaten a Spore down onto this Iron Hands.
Amoonguss will be the slowest Pokemon on the field right now, so it's going to underspeed anything. However, as we saw the last time around, thankfully there's no Urshifu to crit through or Spore through Protect or anything like that. So once Iron Hands actually clicks Detect this time around, it will stay safe, and Cresselia went for the Lunar Blessing. That's a passive way to recover some of your HP there, because you're going to recover 25% and you protect yourself from being put to sleep.
And not only that, it looks like this Cresselia won't be taking much damage as a result of this play. Amoonguss, even if it does opt for an attack here.
Oh, it goes for the Grass Knot, but instead into the Iron Hand slot instead of the Water type Cresselia right now. And there is that Lunar Blessing, the new move that Cresselia gained access to in Legends Arceus, and it's just such an effective move, healing both you and your partner, your teammate Pokemon, for 25% of your HP.
Yeah, I find it very interesting that Riley swapped in his own Cresselia that turn as well. I think recognizing just how much of a passive position he was in at that point in time. He had the opportunity to get it out on the field, and now he has the opportunity to end the Trick Room sooner if he decides that's the path he wants to go. Instead, though, I think you do want to take this opportunity to put the Iron Hands to sleep at least. Cresselia is holding safety goggles, so you can't necessarily do much in that spot this turn, but next turn you could start going for Grass Knots like we saw it try the previous turn.
It is asleep, and it's going to have to eat a super effective Psychic. It is not able to, thanks to a critical hit. Iron Hands is knocked out, and Riley is in a 4-2 Pokemon advantage. How much damage can this Psychic do to the opposing Amoonguss? It is not enough for a KO. It's just going to barely hang on and munch on its Citrus Berry.
Aaron is down to his final 2 Pokemon here. His last Pokemon is Rillaboom, which means that Amoonguss is not as critical as it was moving forwards in this win condition, as Rillaboom will not be deterred by the Rage Powders and doesn't have to worry about being put to sleep. But Riley, at the same time, doesn't have to switch here to remain on the offense. His Amoonguss can go for a Grass Knot into the Cresselia. He can go for a Pollen Puff into the Rillaboom. It's really up to him to determine which Pokemon is the bigger threat long term, and I agree with his double target into the Rillaboom here. This Wood Hammer has the most damage potential from Aaron in the turn.
And now its Citrus Berry has been eaten, so there is less recovery available to Rillaboom thanks to this. But Wood Hammer is not enough for a KO into the Amoonguss. You see there, hardly taking any damage from that resisted attack. But can the Icy Wind follow up, knock knock it out? Yes, it does. It will also lower Cresselia's on Riley's end, but the speed between the two Cresselias aren't really that important right now. Looks like once the Trick Room expires as well, Riley can take advantage of it right now with either the Urshifu or Qianpao outspeeding.
Yeah, I think you send in the Urshifu and maybe lock yourself either into a U-turn to deal big damage against that Rillaboom, or you just start whittling down the Cresselia's health. Knowing that you are Terra Water from turn 1 of this game, you don't have to worry about the Cresselia hitting you super effectively with Psychic, and Cresselia alone is not going to be able to do enough damage to find Aaron a win condition here. Aaron's win condition is being able to connect a very powerful grass type attack onto that Urshifu, then connect an attack against the Qianpao before it's able to pick up a knockout with Ice Spinner. So it's a very tough win spot for him here. He has to catch Riley off guard this turn.
Well, let's see if he can catch him off guard as Qianpao will switch in, activating that Sword of Ruin ability, lowering Rillaboom's defense and knocking it out. Rillaboom goes down. Now it is Cresselia versus the world in this 3v1. Urshifu also crucially gets to switch out, like you were saying, and reset that Choice Scarf attack.
Exactly, and I think you just let it come out on the field when it is time for it to be on the field at this point in time. No Lunar Blessings for the Cresselia. Had the Rillaboom held on with a little bit of health, that would have been a great help moving forwards, but still a very, very great game one from both these regional champions. Riley is currently up 1-0 in this set, but I don't think Aaron is necessarily out of this set. I want to take a moment to sort of think back to how that game played through. And if you think about it, Aaron went immediately for the Trick Room turn 1 on his Cresselia before he knew whether or not Riley had brought that Amoonguss with him into the match. And the biggest issue about setting up Trick Room when you do not have Amoonguss on your own team to sort of help slower things down and sort of threaten the opponent with the same kind of pressure they would have with an Amoonguss, is you have to know, is the Amoonguss in play? Is that something I have to worry about? And unfortunately for Aaron, in terms of how the positioning played out throughout this match, he just did not have his anti-Spore, anti-Amoonguss Pokemon on the field in a position where it made much of a difference once Trick Room was up.
Yeah, it's definitely a difficult road to travel with your Trick Room teams, especially when Aaron, he just has slow Pokemon, right?
Yes.
He doesn't have Trick Room, abusers that are incredibly slow and will always move first, like a Torkoal or, Snorlax when that was around back in the day. One of those Pokemon that is so slow it will underspeed the other slow Pokemon. So Amoonguss on Riley's end is essentially taking advantage of his opponent's Trick Room. So you look on Aaron's side, he has to make an adjustment here. I really liked his Terra Water Cresselia in theory in that turn if the Surging Strikes goes into that slot, but unfortunately Riley did make an adjustment and attack into the detecting Iron Hands. So what can Aaron do in this spot?
I think you terrestrialize the Iron Hands, honestly. Like, I think even if that Raging Strikes had connected with the Cresselia without the water typing, Cresselia should be able to hold on. I mean, yes.
That's what most Cresselias are trained to take. It's the most important attack for them to take in the meta.
Exactly, and it's not a Choice Band or Shifu, it's only a Choice Scarf. And even though the Swords of Ruin ability was in play, I think you take that risk. You give the Grass type terrestrialization to your Iron Hands, then all of a sudden you resist those Raging Strike attacks from the Urshifu, and you also do not have to worry about the Amoonguss. And then you can Sword Stance, you can Thunder Punch, you can really give the Iron Hands the opportunity to be the Trick Room sweeper that it wants to be.
There is Heatran and Urshifu on Aaron's end of the field compared to Riley with an Urshifu of his own, but with that Qianpao, and as you're talking about, the Sword of Ruin is going to be really important as Urshifu on Riley's side can go for a super strong attack into the Heatran unless it terrestrializes into a grass type.
That is such a tough terrestrialization call to make though here, because unlike in the previous game where you had the dimensions twisted after that first turn, there is no way to ensure that the Heatran can attack before the Qianpao in the following turn. So if you do decide to terrestrialize into a grass type, so you don't have to worry about the Urshifu, now you have to worry about Ice Spinner from that Pokemon. I think that Aaron was caught off guard a little bit by the fact that Riley locked into the same lead, but this lead is so powerful powerful. It's just one of those things you have to be prepared for.
Heatran does not terrestrialize. That means the Surging Strikes will take it down. And Aaron Traylor is down to his last 3 Pokemon already on turn 1. He's decided to keep that terrestrialization open for later in the game. Will it pay off? Ice Spinner from Qianpao into the Urshifu is not very effective, but the close combat goes into the opposing Urshifu for a one-hit KO.
It's interesting that he chose to target the opposing Urshifu. I think that was the bigger threat for sure, assuming that there is something in the back of his party that would suffer from the 3-hit critical hits like the Cresselia. So knowing that his final 2 Pokemon are going to align with that Trick Room strategy a bit more moving forward. Now you have the opportunity, you send Cresselia in. If your opponent anticipates the Trick Room, sends in their Amoonguss, you can't be put to sleep. If they send in one of their other attacking Pokemon, chances are now you are bulky enough to be able to take that damage. You get that Trick Room set up, you get your Iron Hands on the field with the opportunity to terrestrialize, and then all of a sudden you are in a much better position than you were in game 1.
Yeah, you definitely do not need Terra Water Cresselia anymore now that the Urshifu has been knocked out. So that Terra can be saved for your Iron Hands as a grass type, meaning Cresselia with safety goggles and Terra Grass Iron Hands are both immune to Spore. So Amoonguss under Trick Room is not going to be able to pull off any of those Spore shenanigans.
Yeah, you also have the potential here to just wait to Trick Room. Amoonguss not going to be doing, again, any sort of threatening damage to the Cresselia right now. I think Qianpao would need 3 turns in order to lock in a KO against the Cresselia. So if you're worried that your opponent is just going to play anti-Trick Room here and think, okay, they're going to go straight for it, they have to. You can get some damage in on this turn and then decide later, because as long as you don't Trick Room, that Amoonguss is going to be the slowest thing on the field.
And it'd be even slower if the Icy Wind does connect, as we saw that is what we locked into. So Urshifu will switch into Aaron's last Pokemon, being Iron Hands. Riley also switched his Amoonguss out, so we have a Cresselia on both sides of the field right now. Not going to do too much damage to either of these Pokemon, and you wonder if that speed drop is going to end up biting Aaron once the Trick Room is up. But Grass Knot into Iron Hands, it's a big boy, so it does some solid amount of damage. It's based off of his weight there, but not too much to really hinder Aaron from trying to go from a Trick Room this turn.
I think this was the position, though, that Aaron was looking for his Iron Hands, as now he can terrestrialize, he can play it safe, and ensure that he can start setting up the sword stances that he needs. He needs that damage output in order to power his way through both the Amoonguss and the Cresselia out on the field for Riley at this point in time. Instead, no terrestrialization from Aaron. If Riley calls this could be the game-defining play.
Sword Stance instead, he wants to bring it back up to full HP and increase his attack. The Spore goes into that slot, so Riley does not fall for it. He's gonna say, you're not turning into a grass type. You will be put to sleep this turn. And Riley's gonna hit up Trick Room just in case Aaron clicked it. But I guess it still works out because of the Icy Wind drop, now his 2 Pokemon are underspeeded.
Yeah, I was going to say, a lot of times in this kind of situation, you do click Trick Room because you're worried your opponent's going to Trick Room. I think Riley wanted the Trick Room here because now the Amoonguss is by far the fastest thing on the field, and he has a few turns to figure out just how to knock out this Iron Hands. We still don't see any terrestrialization from Aaron.
Iron Hands is super low HP right now, gets a special defense drop as well, and has to take that first turn of mandatory sleep, so it's not like you can go for a detect or anything. But Trick Room will reset the dimensions back to normal, meaning that Aaron's Pokemon will be faster under the normal dimensions.
And we saw the Cresselia on Aaron's side of the field outspeed Riley's Cresselia, I think, a couple turns ago, which means that Aaron can click Lunar Blessing now to heal up that Iron Hands and give him an opportunity to get some damage down on the board. The issue that I have with that play, though, is that there's nothing stopping Riley from clicking Spore and Trick Room again. And then all of a sudden, we're in the same situation we were in the previous turn, where Amoonguss and the Cresselia on Riley's side of the field are faster and presumably can double into that Iron Hands for a KO.
Looks like Aaron is wavering back and forth on if he wants to click the Lunar Blessing to heal up Iron Hands, or if he wants to get some damage off into this pesky Amoonguss that's just throughout the years, Amoonguss is always the staple in BGC. It's always a constant threat, and Cresselia is going after the threat with this Psychic. Super effective, but not enough, nowhere near enough. Actually helping Amoonguss because of the Citrus Berry means it's going to take hardly any damage overall. Amoonguss puts it to sleep, but it was already asleep, so that doesn't really matter. And Riley resets up the Trick Room, making the Amoonguss attack first next turn.
This is quite the twisty play here. It's so interesting because in game number 1, Aaron was looking for Trick Room as his primary win condition against Riley. And now here we are in game number 2 where Riley is just doing such a fantastic job of maintaining offensive pressure in Trick Room thanks to the Amoonguss and the Cresselia. Spore is probably one of the best moves in the format right now because it can shut down Pokemon like the Iron Hands, like the Urshifu if they're not holding safety goggles or if they can't terrastalize. There is just so much opportunity for Amoonguss in this moment in time, and it keeps adding up as this Iron Hands is unable to wake up and go for the detect.
A max sleep on Aaron's Iron Hands, and it will be knocked out. Aaron down to his last 2 Pokemon. It's an Urshifu who really cannot touch the Amoonguss whatsoever either, as it has access to water and fighting attacks, which are both resisted by Amoonguss. So can the Cresselia do anything about this? It brings Amoonguss down into the red, but now, because he has not been able to reflip the dimensions and reset the Trick Room to a normal state, the Amoonguss and Cresselia on Riley's end are still faster.
They are. Urshifu does have priority Terrastalize boosted Aqua Jet though, and I think that's Aaron's best shot at finding his way through this situation. You give up your Psychic type weakness on the Urshifu, you hope that you're able to land a KO against the Amoonguss, and then once the Chien-Pao is back on the field for Riley, all of a sudden your Urshifu is now faster than the Chien-Pao. If you can take 2 Psychics from this Cresselia, you can attack that Pokemon through Protect, pick up the KO, and then it's 2v1 versus the Cresselia on Riley's side. That is what Aaron is playing for in this turn.
But Amoonguss switches out, so he can't go for an Aqua Jet to knock out Amoonguss. It's going to come back even healthier because of its Regenerator ability. So once it comes back, it'll have more HP remaining. However, Chien-Pao is in for a rough day when this animation is over because it will be hit by the Urshifu and have its Focus Sash broken. He might not care too much since he does have access to priority attacks, and maybe the Chien-Pao doesn't feel as valuable in this matchup, but this is a Terra Water boosted Aqua Jet into Chien-Pao, looking exactly like a 2-hit KO thanks to the Life Orb damage there. But is he going to be able to get another chance as Psychic is into Urshifu, and it hangs on at 12 HP. It's going to be even healthier thanks to the Lunar Blessing from Cresselia.
It will, but will it be healthy enough to get another attack in that could possibly change this board state? Aaron needs to KO the Chien-Pao here if he wants to stay in this game. If he tries to go for an Aqua Jet, that's not going to be enough damage. If he tries to go for Surging Strikes, then Cresselia is going to outspeed and pick up the knockout with another Psychic. Aaron's only real option here would be to go for a Detect on the Urshifu, heal it up with another Lunar Blessing, and then hope there's one more turn of Trick Room available to him so that he can underspeed the Chien-Pao and go for that KO.
Right, because Aqua Jet and Sucker Punch are both +1 priority, which means under those twisted dimensions that Aqua Jet would actually move before Sucker Punch. But Riley is not going to give him the opportunity, and instead Amoonguss will switch into that slot. Detect was the call, Gabby, so he wanted to stay safe in case a Psychic goes in that direction. Going to stay healthy and let Cresselia heal it up 25% with the Lunar Blessing. But
he called
instead,
the switch!
Psychic! Amoonguss on the switch in, and it hangs on! It's just barely enough to take that hit and still be available while Trick Room has one more turn.
Trick Room has one more turn. Urshifu cannot detect with a guaranteed detect. It's going to be a 30% chance for Aaron to possibly get this play. If the detect fails, Urshifu would be knocked out, and there's no way that this Cresselia can then win the 3v1. However, if Urshifu is able to detect and Cresselia is able to knock out the Amoonguss, and then find a way to make this Urshifu the fastest Pokemon and also heal it again. It's such a tall ask for Aaron, but he's just hanging on by a thread,
30%,
trying to find
30%
it.
of the time.
He gets it!
It works every time. Double detect for Urshifu, and Aaron's hopes of making the finals are currently still alive, hanging in the wings on Cresselia with the Psychic also going into that detect. So a huge turn from Aaron, and now the Lunar Blessing will heal it up to the point that, as we saw the last time around, that Psychic might not be enough to knock out Urshifu. Of course, it will do a little bit of Life Orb recoil damage to itself, which is really scary, right? Because you're going to put yourself into Psychic range potentially.
Yeah, I don't know if you can necessarily go for anything but a Lunar Blessing on this Cresselia as a result. But then you're giving your opponent the opportunity to just target that slot down with a Psychic again. It's very safe for Riley as a Cresselia player in this moment in time to consistently go for those Psychics against the Urshifu, as they're going to be doing insignificant damage. But here we go. The Amoonguss is making sure that it is the only Pokemon that Aaron can target down.
Oh, and the Surging Strikes goes into the Amoonguss slot, so it's going to knock out Amoonguss, but it has done more than enough work to help Riley in this matchup to try to move on to the finals. It's going to take Life Orb recoil as well on Urshifu, losing 10% of its HP, will recover up 25 thanks to Lunar Blessing. So Aaron's hopes rely on this Psychic on Riley's end. From Cresselia into the Urshifu. Is there a critical hit? No! Urshifu's able to hang on. But now that Trick Room is over, Riley does have that priority advantage with Chien-Pao.
He does, and the fact that Urshifu is no longer a fighting type Pokemon is going to mean that Sucker Punch will do enough damage here. You have to look at the Cresselias here as the Pokemon that could potentially open up this match. And let me tell you, Joe, there is one form of speed control remaining for Aaron. He can detect and Trick Room, he could detect an Icy Wind, and that would at least give him somewhat of an opening for this Urshifu. But it's such a tough ask, because then the Cresselia is going to be faster.
Well, you know that at least, as you mentioned, the only dark attack for Chien-Pao is Sucker Punch. So if you click a Lunar Blessing or if you click Trick Room, the Sucker Punch is not going to be able to hit Cresselia.
Exactly, but I don't think Aaron can play that safely here. I think he has to go for a big read. He has to try and find a way to keep this Urshifu in the game.
Chien-Pao protects, meaning it's not going to go for any attacks this turn. Urshifu will detect as well, effectively the same thing. Going to keep themselves safe. It all comes down to these two Cresselias. Riley's Psychic goes into that detect there, and this does set up Trick Room for Aaron to underspeed and go for Aqua Jet, which beats Sucker Punch.
It does, but will it do enough damage? We saw Chien-Pao, it's sitting at 50% from that attack previously in the game. I think this has to be a damage roll. It's all coming down to this one turn. Will Riley move on to the finals? Will Aaron keep his game and his tournament dreams alive? It all comes down to this Aqua Jet.
It takes it out. Chien-Pao is down. It's been knocked out, and it's just Cresselia left for Riley. But look how low of the HP Urshifu is at. Obviously, Cresselia is going to be able to knock it out in response. So we were worried about a Heatran mirror. We ended up with the Cresselia mirror, where all they can do is Ice Beam and Icy Wind each other at this point. But Aaron's gonna go for that Psychic into the slot. Look how little damage it does. You might have to fish for some like special defense drops or something like that, or an Ice Beam freeze. Let's see if we get a freeze here. This might take a while, Gabby.
I know. I was just going to say it might be a nice time to review the tiebreaker rules if we hadn't done that already on stream earlier today. So the interesting thing about being in this position right now is that because there is one Pokemon remaining each, that does make it very easy to figure out, if we do hit time in this matchup, which Pokemon would most likely win the game, because it's all going to come down to percent of health remaining. And you can see that Riley is fishing for a freeze, because if you can't attack, then you're...
There's this F drop! So now, as the Twisted Dimensions return to normal, now Aaron's Cresselia will be moving faster, and Cresselia has -1 special defense on Riley's side.
Yes, so Riley's only win condition at this point in time is to freeze the Cresselia so that Aaron cannot deal damage. We did see Aaron sneak in a Lunar Blessing there. That was great. I think management just recognizing you want to keep your health higher. And now you can see the Psychic does about 2 Psychics worth of damage. So it's still, you know, going to be a bit of a longer match here for sure.
And now Riley's like, say, that's not a bad idea. Why don't I fish for a spin F drop as well?
Yeah, all right. So we're tied up on special defense drops. We might get another one in here. We might not. You never know.
He might bring a Lunar. That's what I was going to say. They both have access to Lunar Blessing.
Yeah. And that's exactly when you want to go for it, right? Again, you want to make sure that your Cresselia has the higher amount of health in this situation.
Yeah, they're just going to keep going for it and going and fishing for special defense drops. I like that Riley, because he had the advantage with Ice Beams. It's kind of a which option do you like? Would you rather fish for ice or freeze or fish for the special defense drops? And after realizing, after that first one he got, he's like, no, I got to switch game plans. I got to go for the Psychics.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised that he's not going back to the Ice Beams now that he has matched the special defense drop. I mean, obviously you have to be a little bit more, I think, proactive in this situation, and if you're assuming that that's what your opponent's going to keep doing, as Aaron does deal more damage with Psychic than he does with Icy Wind, you do have to keep that matchup. I do think, though, on a long enough time scale, getting a freeze here would be way more impactful for Riley. That being said, though, I wish we could just check in on the timers real quick. You will notice that both of these players are entering their moves in very quickly. That's because if you lose on your time, so if the timer that's counting how much time you have hits 0, you lose. That critical hit could make a difference here. Aaron is down to 2 Lunar Blessings
and 4 Psychics.
And
that's
4
it.
Psychics, and we did just get the 3 minutes remaining minder on screen.
So you only have 4 Psychics left. Icy Wind is significantly weaker than a Psychic or an Ice Beam would be from Riley's side. And because Riley was not sitting there clicking Lunar Blessing multiple times to keep his teammates safe, he has way more Lunar Blessings available as well.
Yeah, Aaron gets a critical hit on that Icy Wind. That could make a difference here. We're going to see the Cresselia, though, heal it all the way back up. I think it's going to come down to just who is able to manage their Lunar Blessings a little bit better. And assuming Riley has maybe 2 or 3 available to him at this point in time, I think he just clicks straight Lunar Blessing from here on out.
He might as well, because you know Aaron's eventually going to run out of Psychics on this Cresselia, and you see only 4 remaining. We're under 30 seconds remaining on your time on Aaron's end as well. So in multiple scenarios, it is not looking right for Aaron. 2 minutes left in the overall match timer, regardless of the 20 seconds on Aaron's your time.
Aaron has a tough call to make here. I think you wait until the last possible second to click that Lunar Blessing, but his Cresselia is down into the yellow, and Riley just has so much more health to spare. I think Aaron would have to get another special defense drop on that Cresselia, probably followed by a critical hit of that Psychic in order to try and stay in this game. It's such a tall ask for him. It's such a tall ask for this Cresselia.
Thanks to all these animations, though, it might end up as Aaron's giving a little love to the crowd.
Oh,
with
no,
his
Cresselia.
Oh, that's not a good omen for well, we're running out of your time, and Cresselia is out of here on the stage, not staying on the table any longer. There's the Ice Beam. You think Riley definitely has the advantage right now, both on your time and on overall match time left. 60 seconds left in the match.
60 seconds left in the match. Cresselia throwing yet another Ice Beam. Aaron's Cresselia is sitting at such low health. There is no more opportunity for recovery. I'm pretty sure this is going to end up in Riley's favor. He might even just find a knockout within the next couple of turns, as look at how much damage that Ice Beam does.
It hangs on at 7. You can see Ice Beam is doing way more damage than Icy Wind does in one last Icy Wind for the road. Aaron, show some love. Cresselia has helped you get to a top 4 position, but what a top 4 we have here in Pittsburgh. There's the Ice Beam, and Riley Factura is 1 win away for potentially getting his 5th regional championship in the Masters division.
We were talking a lot about the differences between these two Heatran and Cresselia teams, and funny enough, one difference we didn't call out was the presence of the Icy Wind on Aaron's Cresselia and the Ice Beam on Riley's Cresselia. While it's true that the fact that Riley was relying less on Lunar Blessing overall just gave him more health in that endgame situation, and I think ensured that even if we did hit timer, he would have been able to win that pretty comfortably. The fact that he was also able to deal more damage to Aaron's Cresselia with that secondary move and also carry with it the chance of a freeze just made all the difference in that endgame.